What is up, my ninjas? I'm Strident, and welcome to another video. So today I want to attack something that was said 3 months ago by Ricky Todd Botello on my Tim Drake Robin Multiverse video, my review. I mentioned that the Mezco Sovereign Knight is my favorite Batman figure, and it's nearly perfect. And this guy told me that the Mezco, M-E-S-S-C-O, is not a perfect figure by any stretch of the shit. I'm quoting him. For the money, the dolly is a joke compared with the greatest Batman made I've seen to date. The Mattel 80th Batman, best of all. He's talking about the Dick Grayson Batman. I was almost speechless. I had to think about it for a couple minutes. Like, how do I even respond to this? I've been on YouTube for over 10 years. And from time to time, I dip into the Batman pool because I'm a Batman fan myself. But that's not even remotely correct. Not even by a single SOLITUDE stretch of the imagination. I don't know if he was trolling. I don't know if... he was trying to, I don't know, like just trolling really hard, or if this is a true, belief. But it's completely off base. Completely off base. I even let him know that he was so off base that it was painful. I corrected his spelling of Mezco, and then I just let him know essentially that there are so many better Batman figures out there than this Mattel 80th, whatever you want to call it, Dick Grayson as Batman. Because, I mean, number one, it's not the Batman. It's a Batman, as in someone else who's worn the cowl. It's not even like, the run was okay. That run was not like the greatest, you know what I mean? And the figure itself is not even an accurate representation of Dick Grayson, even within the line, let alone what he looked like in the comic. And I'm going to show you more. So let's look at this figure. You can just tell his stature, his expression. He looks too soft. The musculature is different. It's just a very cheapo looking figure. Granted, he has double jointed knees, which is something that us DC fans have wanted for a long time from Mattel, and they finally gave it to us on, what was that, like wave 16 or 15 of DCUC, and then they did it on the last couple waves of the multiverse. But how is this remotely better than this? This cost 80 bucks. This feels like I'm spending more money on this. This feels like more money was spent making this. I mean, in reality, it's not 80 bucks worth of a figure that you're getting. You're essentially getting a $20 figure with, another $10, $15 worth of stitching going on over top of him. But you get so many accessories and things and pieces that it makes it feel like you're getting your money's worth. The paint work, the sculpt work is so top notch. There's no comparison, and there shouldn't be with a $60 price difference. These guys are still doing the same bullshit that they've always done, making Batman figures that don't come with batarangs or grapple guns or Bruce Wayne unmasked Bruce Wayne heads. Instead, the first Dick Grayson as Batman that we get comes with a Dick Grayson unmasked head, but we haven't gotten Bruce Wayne heads to put on these same figures. Like, how does that make sense? Like that's just dumb. And let's talk about the cape. In my comment, I did say that the capes were plastic. I had forgotten that this was a soft goods cape. So, I was wrong in that comment. They're soft goods, but look at the cape. It's a shit cape. It doesn't drape over his body like it's supposed to. It should be over his shoulders. By now, you should know that, like, that's a Batman thing. That was even an issue I had with Batfleck, because his cape didn't drape over his shoulders. It sat behind him almost all the time, because that was a Frank Miller thing. Frank Miller didn't like having the cape drape over him, except for, he wrote Year One. Mazzucchelli liked having the cape do things. He gave the cape the personality. Miller did not. But this is a cheapo looking cape. It's even transparent because it's got holes in it because they used the wrong kind of material. It just overall is just not, it's not like the figure itself. It's very basic in the sense that they already had a Nightwing figure, and for some odd reason they changed things from the Nightwing figure to this Batman figure, when in reality they could have just taken the Nightwing figure and redecoed it. You know what I mean? And then you would have just had, Dick Grayson as Batman using his actual body. This is something that, like, Mattel is known for doing this, yet for some reason they gave him like different parts, and it just didn't make sense. The only thing you need to change were the cuffs on his forearms and his or on his wrists, and then his belt, and that's it. You know, even the head sculpt, you didn't really need to do anything for that head sculpt. They even painted the head sculpt different from the Nightwing head sculpt, so he's got like pronounced lips, whereas on the Nightwing head sculpt he doesn't have such pronounced lips. Like, why would they do this? It's because it's Mattel and it's a cheapo mass retail figure, and Mattel has always kind of cut corners where they don't need to, and even in many cases in a line or a wave where they do things super right, they still do things kind of wrong. And it's frustrating because, they have done some amazing things in the past, and this is coming from a fan of the DCUC. So as you can see here, the torsos, lower torso looks like it's the same, upper torsos are different. Why? It's supposed to be the same guy. That just seems like a missed opportunity. They could have even kept the forearms and wrists the same, just tweak them slightly, you know what I mean? And then you would have had the perfect proportions because it's the same figure, same character. Why did they fuck this up? And then with that being said, though this Nightwing is nice, to me it doesn't really top the DCUC one. That's my favorite Nightwing, hands down. I mean, it's just, there's no contest. Just look at him. From head to toe, the proportions are right. I mean, he should be kind of, Diesel. If anyone could imitate Batman because they had the same training as Batman, it would be Nightwing, because he was Robin and then he, became Nightwing, and he's also been working with Batman closely longer than anybody else. So his physique should be somewhat similar, and then that's added to his training. But this figure just captures it for me. All he needed was a smirk. But you have the place for the batons or the Screama sticks. He's perfect in my opinion. I mean, his articulation is what it is because it's a product of the time for Mattel, which seems to be every time. But even with his shortcomings, the figure is near perfect. I mean, you don't have to always have double jointed everything, to be perfect. It's a perfect essence of the character. If he had ball joints and, all that stuff, he would have been perfect, like literally perfect. But like you see him standing here next to all the others, and it's like, while none of them are terrible, don't get me wrong, none of them are terrible. The first two Mattel versions, to me, capture the characters better. Or I shouldn't say first two, the first two in this image, because the previous Nightwing from the DC superheroes thing looked like Bruce Lee. And I don't know what they were going for with that. It worked for the time because that was the best rendition, but that's why he's not in this picture. But these two or three, the first two to me encapsulate the character better. The icons or essentials one is too big, and too many joints kind of make him look kind of funky. But I'm a huge DCUC fan. You know this. If you've been on my channel for any amount of time, early in my time here on YouTube, I went over a lot of DCUC stuff. A lot of times it was like in a video with ODC, that's me, or we just talked a lot about DCUCs, or when I would review one figure, I would bring out the others, you know what I mean? Just to show you the entirety, because my goal was to get all the characters that I've loved over the years. I even mix in my DC Directs, which you can see in this picture. And, now I have some other, I guess they're DC collectibles now. But like I said, it's a huge collection. I know what I'm talking about. And that's not even the tip of the iceberg at all. Not even. There are so many customs that have been done well. There's even little things people did to the actual figure in question that makes it look better than what it is stock. For instance, custom cape. If he had a cape that actually did what it did, it can help add bulk, add body to the character, because you can hide things with the cape, which is the whole purpose of having this huge cape. You've got a character who's essentially a ninja wearing a cape. Obviously, it's to hide movements and hide things and appear bigger and scarier than you really are, because Batman is all about intimidation. And you got him with that dinky ass cape, and you're saying that stock, that's better than what the Mezco capes look like. I'm not even going to get to the Mezco capes until towards the Mezco figures until the end. Right now, I just want to talk about this figure and customs of this character. You fixing the cape does a lot. Here's an AC Customs version of Dick Grayson as Batman. And look at it. The proportions are better. The gloves look better. The belt looks better. The cape, even though it's plastic, it still looks fuller than the cape that he came with stock in the Multiverse version. These are all details that seem to have been missed. Even the face, they used the head from the alternate, the blue and gray S3 sculpt Batman. Most of this body is the S3 sculpt Batman, at least the upper body is, and it's perfect. This one I found on Figure Realm. Well, I did a search and it's popped up, and it's a similar recipe, slightly different cape, and different sculpting on the belt and the hands, and they used the Superman head from the, I want to say, All-Star Wave, unless that is it actually looks better than the All-Star Wave one. That might be the actual DC Collectibles New 52 Superman head, the one that everyone was calling Ghetto Rape Face Superman. But the smirk, I said he needed a smirk, but he needs to look serious and imposing while he's in the Batman costume, which makes sense, right? That's what you would expect. That's what he'd be trying to do to fool everyone. I don't know, maybe I just think about this stuff differently, but these customizers seem to get exactly what it is that's missing from the official releases. I mean, this is a Raybot custom, as you can see from the picture. He put them in black and gray, which would more mimic, at least one of the more recognizable color schemes that Batman tends to be in. It looks like it's many of the same parts from previous DCUC figures, and he got the gloves and he got the belt. It looks the part. You know what I mean? Someone else people could be fooled that that's, actually Bruce Wayne. But these are customs that were made, not that long ago. Honestly, what about figures that were made well before this? Are there better Batman figures before the last 5 years or so? I mean, I would say there are. So let's take it back a little bit. Let's go way back into time, before things got to the point where you constantly had these kinds of messages that I'm answering, and you had more of, which Batman figure is this? This is one of my all-time favorite figures. This is the DC Superheroes by Mattel Zipline Batman. This was from, I want to say, 03, 04. It was really the beginning of DC jumping into the realm that was predominantly or just dominated by Marvel Legends, and they made one of the best Batman figures ever. He doesn't have the articulation that modern figures have. He has more articulation in line with the DC Direct figures right up until the Arkham series. So he's got the T-jointed legs, no thigh swivel, no double jointed knees, basic knee articulation, nothing in the ankles. The arms are universals at the shoulders, no bend at the elbow, swivels at the wrists, and he has rubbery kind of hands. He's got a twist at the waist and a twist at the head. That's it. I have about 3 of these guys, and I did different things with them because you could easily customize the cape. The cowl is the neckline. It goes all the way up to the neckline. You could remove the head if you need to, pull that whole cowl piece off, put the cape back on there, glue it down, put the cowl on top, put the head back on, and you were good. And the capes just looked good. I mean, the stock cape was lame. My capes were amazing. And this was before you were spending $20-something on a cape simply because it has a wire in it. I was doing all varieties of capes, but that's not what we're talking about. This is just how easy it was to make this figure a little bit more epic by customizing the cape. And I did that a number of times, and I loved it. It made it fun for me, and a lot of people were impressed with the results, which means I must have been on the right track with this. But to me, this was the best. It's one of my all-time favorite Batman figures. It's one of the best. I mean, he doesn't have the best articulation, but that's not all there is to a figure. I played with this guy because I got him way back in the day. I think I was just getting into, I was about to graduate college, actually. So there was a lot of choreography. I'd go home and play with my younger brother and my younger sister, and we would come up with crazy plots and stuff. And this was the Batman that I used. It's still the one that when I play with my sons, I play with them because it's a well-made figure. You know, it's like it was made to be played with. Then there was the upgrade, which was the S3 sculpt Batman. This is another one. These are all figures that were $20 or less when they came out. I think I got him, he was a birthday present from one of my homeboys, a fellow comic book artist. And I think at the time he was under $20. The S3 sculpt Batman is dope as far as the sculpt and the detailing and the paint and everything. He came with a shit ton of accessories that he couldn't use because you see he has two fists, but he has like notches in those fists where you can kind of wedge batarang in his hands. Not the best way to do it, but it provided me with a shit ton of batarangs for the previous Batman I just showed you, and then later Batman figures that have open hands. This figure, you've seen bits and pieces of him in some of the customs that I showed you before. Potentially, this is young Bruce Wayne, judging from the older utility belt and the face. The face isn't all square yet, which I don't know how his face would, square out over time, but, it's Batman. Some of the details are there, but the face is the most different thing. And you've seen this face in some of the customs previously because it's the most different face that we got at the time from all the other Batman figures. This was a redo of this figure, which was re-released, and this version I have is the re-release. I didn't get the original release back in the DC Superheroes days. I got this. This was Batman Unlimited. This figure is dope. Same issues as the other one, but he has a smaller utility belt, and he has the classic head, which is really similar to the head on Zipline Batman, which is perfect. And as you can see, I've got him with a custom cape, because those custom capes, they go a long way. I'm telling you, it really sets off the figures. You can even check out ODC That's Me's video on the custom cape I did for him. I did a ton of those capes in the beginning. I shouldn't say a ton, but I did a nice chunk of capes for people all over the place. People in Canada, people even in Dubai. And they were satisfied with it because it drapes. You know what I mean? It does what it needs to do. Doing another batch with wires would be fun. I might try that and see what it looks like. But I love having a cape that drapes, or if I put him put a fan on him, all that cape will pick up with the air or the wind. It just looks good. It looks really good. And it can drape, it can fold over his shoulders like it's supposed to. But this is an improvement on the Zipline Batman. Maybe you like movie figures. Mattel also did their own versions of the movie figures. They did the Batman Begins and the Dark Knight and the Dark Knight Rises, as well as kind of like a throwback to the old Toy Biz and Kenner Dark Knight collection Keaton Batman figures. So it all depends on what you like. For me, I'm always a movie person because the movie designs always take things in more of a detail-oriented, direction. So I get to see more. How does this stuff work? You know what I mean? Not just here's a naked guy painted up to look like, you put lines where the boots are, lines where the gloves are, line where the mask is and the underwear. No, I want to see what does a suit look like and how does it work. And that's why I like movie figures. But that might not be everybody's cup of tea, as I've learned over the years. So, that's why I'm showing you a mix of stuff. Mattel did a good job of covering just about every single piece of Batman's history. You like video games? Here's the Arkham City / Arkham Asylum costume. I just have the black and gray version. I did not like what the blue looked, how the blue came out. It was too bright. But even this looks better than that new Mattel one. His articulation's a little different. He doesn't have double jointed anything, but as you can see, it's the presence of the figure. Does it feel like Batman? Does it have the stature? Does it feel like the character? Do you like what you see? Does it remind you enough, carry the essence, the integrity of the design that it's supposed to represent? And this does in spades. So when people are telling you all this other nonsense, I'm like, what, did you forget that all this stuff existed? Again, he has a custom cape because the capes that come stock are typically too small. They're good enough to kind of give you the idea, because often in the game the cape is behind him. I think the only time they went all out was with the Batman. Those figures were nice. They had long capes. I mean, the sculpts were kind of weird because he was in weird poses, but he had a long cape that touched the ground and kind of flared out like this. But as you can see, adding the custom capes on these guys, it made them awesome, and it made them, it added dimension to these characters, or to these versions of the character. He just doesn't feel boring, and it looks like what you remember. All these figures were under 20 bucks. I want to say the last, actually that's not true. The Arkham one was 20 bucks. The others, and maybe the Batman Unlimited one was 20 bucks, but all the others were under 20 bucks. They were like from $8 to $10 to like $17.99. And you can still find deals on them on eBay where you could get them for 20 bucks plus shipping or something like that, which is, still close to what you're going to pay if you buy that particular, the Dick Grayson Batman figure online. You're going to pay 20 bucks plus because you're buying it online. You know what I mean? There might be a couple places where you could get it for free shipping, but you could still spend that money and get some of these older ones. And I left out a ton of other versions. There's so many Batman figures out there to get. But wait up. Let's get into the more higher end stuff. I guess NECA doesn't 100% count as high end, but it feels like it's a high end toy. This is the NECA Keaton Bats from a couple years back that came with the Diamond Lux Batman 89 DVD. Dope ass figure, feels the part. If you light him correctly and you have the right kind of cape on this bad boy, you could fool people into believing that the shots could be stills, because the cape covers up joints, the articulation is there, the accessories are there, the light loves this guy. I mean, just look at the images. It looks good. The only thing you needed was, he needed a bigger cape, slightly bigger cape, so it could flare out a little bit more. I did that for mine. But this figure is phenomenal, and a lot of people still sell it on eBay and still sell it on Amazon. You can still get them for like 20 something dollars. Much better than that Dick Grayson figure. And I'm going out of my way to show all different types of Bats figures so that you understand that this is not just a some run-of-the-mill commentary where I'm just telling you, oh, my opinion is blah, 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 blah. This isn't an opinion piece. You know what I mean? It's not. This is me giving you facts to back up my words. I'm showing you quality that's out there. And I want you to keep in mind, most of the figures that I'm showing you, I own them also. Like, here's an underappreciated, underrated, gem that just came and went, and most people forget it was ever even a thing. And this is the Injustice second. It's one of the alternate costumes for Batman. I think this was the Insurgency costume. I wasn't a big fan of the first Injustice, but I loved this figure, and I'm showing you him with the alternate head because this was an awesome idea. They should have used it more in the game, because the game model looked like shit. The initial suit, the introductory suit. But I love this figure. It's still a fun figure to play with, and it's a perfect like Elseworlds version of Bats. Say you like movies again, and your jam was the Christian Bale era with the Dark Knight trilogy, then here is Figuarts again doing their rendition of the Dark Knight and the Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises Batman. It looks good. It looks really good. It's super film accurate, and he's super posable, and he's tall. A lot of people had issues with height on some of the Batman figures, and I'm kind of like, stop nitpicking, but you know, he looks good. He looks really good. He looks film accurate. You know, they got the sculpt on point with this guy with the overbite. You know what I mean? Christian Bale's little overbite. It looks good. And you can get this one. This is where we're getting a little bit pricier, you know, because once you get into like the imports, you're starting to, and some of the older figures, you're starting to, you know, look at $40 and up. So we're no longer in the same territory that we started in. But these are all choices that exist, and they all blow that piece of shit out of the water. You know what I mean? Now, understand this. I call it a piece of shit, and I'm kind of joking. If that's what's within your price range, then fine. That's what's within your price range. Let it do. But, you know, you got to recognize that that's the lower class of these figures. When I say class, this isn't like some type of dick measuring contest. I mean lower classes in lower quality figure. Sculpt wise, paint wise, accessory wise, articulation wise. It's a lower quality figure. You know what I mean? It's a different class of figure. These are a higher class of figure. So when you make statements where you say shit like the cheaper figure is the better figure just all across the board, this is not one of those cases. You know what I mean? We're getting up into the big leagues now, where even though there are missteps, the missteps in this league are still creating figures that are light years better than what Mattel has been producing ever, period. You know? So, you know, and that's against the other Mattel figures that I pointed out earlier. You know, this is a Mafex actually version of that. Now let's go back to Figuarts again. This is the Figuarts Justice League Batman. This is a controversial figure because a lot of people had problems with his stature, because the pictures made him seem like he was at least 6 inches tall, you know, like 6, almost 7 inches tall, whereas the figure was a little under 6 inches tall. And what you see here is probably the height that he was intended to be, but the actual figure was a little squished. There was like a the peg that was holding the dumbbell that held his torso, lower torso and upper torso together was really short. So there are customizers out there that sold replacement barbells that are longer. Also, if you get a bootleg Mafex Justice League Batman, or I'm sorry, BVS Batman, his head barbell is the perfect size for that. Speaking of Mafex, here's the Mafex version of the same figure. He's longer and taller, but he's not as like jacked as that figure is. But a lot of people preferred this one over the other. This is not a film accurate toy. He's black. Like his costume is like, it's like 90% cool gray, or actually it's not even cool, warm gray. Maybe it's cool. But a lot of people dig this. This is still light years better than that other one. Tactical suit Batman from Justice League. Maybe this is your jam. Again, I know movie stuff isn't for everyone, but the cape is better. The accessories are better. The articulation is better. The paint job and sculpt are just light years better. I mean, and you can get bootlegs of this for $20. You know what I mean? So if you really want this figure, and the bootlegs aren't bad. From all the reviews I've seen, many of the bootlegs actually hold up. But these are some of your options. And now let's get to the Mezcos. Now here's a figure that doesn't get the credit that it deserves. It's a beautiful rendition of the original Batman design from Bill Finger and Bob Kane. More so Bill Finger, as we've learned in recent years. This is the Ascending Knight Batman. Now this is one of my favorites as well. This is what made me get into the mode where I started to realize what Mezco was doing. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get rid of many of my Batman figures because I don't need so many, when technically you need to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. You know what I mean? You don't need to have so many variations in between. And this figure does an amazing job capturing the beginning portion of Batman. You know what I mean? It's still black and gray, but he's got the meaner look. He's got the shorter gloves, the bigger utility belt, because, I mean, he's kind of new at this. You know what I mean? This is him when he's just getting his stride, you know, the early years. And he looks awesome. Yeah, people have all these nitpicks about the cape and shit, talking about the cape looks cheap. I'm not paying more for the cape than I did for the figure. You know what I mean? Like, come on. People want $20 and $30 for a fucking cape, and it's an $80 figure. You know what I mean? Like, get out of here. A portion of that is the costume, a portion of that are the accessories. I'm not going to pay all that for the cape alone. I make do with this cape. It's the early Batman. He doesn't have to have the best cape. You know what I mean? But it looks good. It looks really good. He's super well articulated, and I will be reviewing this figure because the third in the line is coming soon. Oh, and they did make him in multiple colors. There's a black and gray, like I just showed you pictures of. There's an all black version, and there is the blue and gray version. Of course, the all black version is the most expensive, so the blue and gray is the most common. I mean, the gray and black is the most common. Sometimes I see the blue and gray for cheap. It all depends on what you're into, but you don't get that kind of variety with any of the other Mattel stuff that they've released. They just don't do it. They give you, at least they're giving you that option. You know what I mean? The option is there. But this figure is masterfully done. I don't get the hate that people have for this figure. It's an awesome, beginning point for the Batman saga. Then of course there's the figure that started all this, the Sovereign Knight. I remember people being pissed at the fact that the paneling isn't exactly the same. It's not as pronounced on the final release, but it's still a near perfect figure. I love it. I think they did everything I could ask for. I mean, and look at all the shit you get. You can't even complain. You know how I've talked about how Marvel Legends will pack a whole bunch of random shit, or some of the poor G.I. Joe releases from back in the day, they would pack a whole bunch of shit in the package that the figure could or could not use, and then people would be like, oh my god, he comes with so much stuff, it's so awesome, and then the figure would be subpar. That's not the case here. Even with the slight variance on his the paneling on the costume, it's still an amazing fucking figure. The articulation is on point. Nothing's too big and too weird and blocky and in the way. Everything fits where it's supposed to fit. Everything works the way it's supposed to work. And not pictured in this is the Bruce Wayne head that comes with all the different variations of this figure. So people's weird, this particular person I was speaking with, and his weird hatred towards the figure, I don't know if it's because it's outside of the range of what you're into or what you've normally collected, but if you were to get the opportunity to, and you could get this for a decent price, get it. Obviously it's an $80 figure. Like I said, $80 is the bar for entry for these figures. The longer they're out, the more expensive they become, unless you find somebody to hook you up. Also, you got to be aware that, like, it's a mixture of things. You can play with the figure too, but you have soft goods covering the whole figure, so you got to be careful how you decide to play with them. But these things photograph perfectly. You can pose them pretty much however you want. There's only a few things that he's limited to, and for $80, I mean, come on. And they gave you multiple versions of this figure. You got the blue and gray. There's the Bruce Wayne head that you see was pictured in the previous one, which was a younger Bruce Wayne head. He doesn't have he has black hair in the previous one, or darker brown hair, and then in this one his temples are starting to gray, which is pretty awesome because it makes perfect sense. That's the way it should be. Then they did another one. This is the Mezco exclusive, where it's the black and yellow, kind of like the Keaton Bats version. It's still the same figure, same era, same time, but it's a variation on the same release. This would be considered a chase, I guess, figure for, DCUC. But it looks perfect. There's nothing I could ask for this particular release. It's perfect, right? It's just now it was so rare, and so it's stupid expensive. The fans go nuts with these figures as far as price goes. But I mean, you can't blame them for respecting the quality. Now there's another exclusive that comes from a 2-pack with Black Mask, and it's an all black, jet black, pure stealth, Sovereign Knight Batman. Same accessories. He actually comes with, I think, one less head, or 2 less heads actually, because there's no battle damage head, and then there's no long-eared head. Just the unmask, then the gritted teeth, and but he comes with everything else that the others came with. And actually, it looks like he doesn't even come with the kryptonite, the anti-kryptonite, or kryptonite brass knuckles, or whatever, kryptonite knuckles. But it's a choice. But this is the one I'm geeked for because he's coming out soon, and that is the Supreme Knight, which is Mezco's retake on the Dark Knight Returns, the Frank Miller Batman, which was their first release. I went through a whole bunch of craziness to get that figure because I didn't think they were going to continue this line. I thought it was like a one-off type deal, and you see what it bloomed into. So everything that you've seen with the others, it exists here, you know, except Batman is older, and he's buffer, and he's got armor, and he's got like just more detail going on because this is him at the height. This is legendary Batman. This is the old man who knows all the tricks, who's seen it all, who's done it all and survived, who now, you know, he's a legend. And just like the others, look at all the shit he comes with, including an unmasked head and a gritting teeth, you know, head, as well as all that other shit. You know what I mean? Like, it's just there's no comparison. You know what I mean? There's just no comparison. If you're still making the comparison after you finish watching this video, or even during this video, if you're still trying to compare that very flimsy release to this kind of stuff, I mean, there's just nothing else I can tell you. This is not me shitting on people's what people can and can't afford. What I'm saying is, these are options, and these options exist, and they vary from figure to figure in quality, from line to line in quality. Just design, they vary. You're getting, just look at this. Look at all the detail on that suit. There's nicks and scratches on just the basic body of the suit because this is how much he's been doing what he's been doing for years. You know, this is how involved he is. Certain colors are no longer on the suit because he obviously has figured out what works by this point, and the stealth probably angle is the best angle for Batman. It makes sense. So you don't have yellow on that suit anymore. But, you know, if you need it, of course you know that there's going to be that variation, right? But just look at him. Look at how tough and how just pissed he looks and how serious. This is what you want in an old, grizzled Batman, you know? And, like, you're supposed to believe that, you know, this is like 50, 60-year-old Batman, and he's still able to kick ass and take names like he always has been. Obviously, there'll be some shortcuts. It's possible that the suit could have some, you know, pneumatics or like an exoskeleton built in or something like that, but you would never know based on the design, right? So it's left up to your imagination what this stage in Batman's life is going to be like. Like, now I see a use for that Joker because that Joker could be a version of the Joker, like a clone or something. You know, that's why he's still young and Batman's old and grizzled, and that could be the dynamic. You know, it's like Joker reborn versus, you know, the same Batman that he fought 30 some odd years ago. You know what I mean? But just look at it. You know, there's no comparison. The quality is just on another level. But again, if you need blue because you're a fashionista Batman collector, here you go. You got the blue and gray. I don't think it looks as good, but a lot of people dig it. If that's what you need, they got you. They got you. And it looks all right, you know? The sculpt on the face is a little bit different. And I forgot to mention that they're also doing their own 89 Batman. As you see, he's got two different portraits, got a bunch of batarangs, bunch of hands, grapple gun attachments and all that stuff, and the extra attachments for his wrists for those different things he used in the film. And supposedly the body is seamless. What? You know what I mean? Really, what? And then I forgot to mention Mafex doing their Hush Batman. And, you know, while all what it comes with, it only comes with that little bit of stuff you see underneath the airborne picture of Batman next to the grapple shooting image. You know, the grapple extended, the grapple retracted, and two different batarangs. It's a $90 figure. But look at him. He looks so cool. And you have this variation, the black and gray, if that's what you're into. So again, it seems like everybody else is giving fans of Batman what they need, what they want, what they like. And Mattel keeps dropping the ball, even though they've had the ball for the longest amount of time. and they were on the ball for a little while. You know, this is my public service announcement to help some folks who might be jumping into this brand new, who have no idea what's out there. These are all things that are out there. You can go do some research and you'd be surprised what you find. Because if there's one character who gets the most attention, if there's one fan base that gets served more than anyone else, Transformers, G.I. Joe, He-Man, Thundercats, everything, it's Batman. Batman is more popular than DC Comics in its entirety. Everything Batman gets released. The other people don't. You know, other things don't. So there's a world of Batman stuff out there to look at, and there are levels to it, and you have to be aware of it when you go into this, you know? So that's the main point of this. My channel is always served to inform people as well as give you a fresh look at things that are out there in the pop culture space from a perspective that isn't marred by, you know, sponsorships and you know, trying to keep up with the Joneses and fear of being left out and all that bullshit. I'm a regular guy. I make regular money. I save it when I can so that I can get things that I like. I put my family first, and then I do my thing. And in the middle of this, I have things that I've always been a fan of. You know what I mean? Things I've always somehow was able to make room for, and Batman was always one of those things because it was the first superhero I ever got into, period, you know? So this is both as a fan and as a reviewer. I am informing you that what you thought is the best of everything is not even close. And for those of you coming into this fresh and you've never collected, and this is the first time you're ever getting a chance to see, you know, some of this stuff that I've mentioned, this is information for you guys to see what's out there, you know? I'm not including hot toys because I don't consider them toys. Those are like museum pieces. They're not really things you can play with. They're not things that are going to last. They don't really stand the test of time. It's possible that Mezco's might go the same way, but from the experiences that I've had, like the Dark Knight Returns, Frank Miller style Batman that I got years back is still in pretty perfect condition. You know, the rubber tips at the bottom of his cape, they're still there. Nothing's rubbed off, you know, nothing's degraded over time, you know, so they're using quality materials, so I don't have any problems with them. My figure arts, all of them are still tip-top condition, even the few that have fallen off of their shelves. So, you know, I'm letting you know from it, owning all of what I'm talking about. I think every brand that I showed you a picture of in this review, I own figures, Batman figures, from each of these brands. Multiples in some cases, because that's just been the thing that I do. So, you know, I just want you to see the full breadth of what I'm saying in response to your statement. So as usual, that is it for me. You guys have been great. I hope you were able to learn something. If you did, give me a like, share it. If you feel that, you know, you could figure out more stuff, you could learn more stuff, you enjoy this sort of content, subscribe, because I mean, that's why we do it, right? So we can talk to you guys. That way you can be notified when I do upload new stuff, because it's going to be, you know, a little bit more spread out than usual, but it will be coming. So anyway, that's it for me. You guys have been great. Peace outside.